any TV show that you see now that has like people gathered in a bar or a restaurant feels like a historical period drama.
Truly, truly. And what's shocking to me is that the people in charge of advertising and messaging and branding, which is exactly your area of expertise, haven't just decided, you know what, we should not advertise at all, let alone advertise in a way that is so incongruent to what's going on in the world right now. It's just so jarring to me to see any of the, like, cruise ship. I saw an ad for a cruise ship. Like, I don't know what they're thinking to keep playing all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of companies are adapting. They're, you know, I'm seeing a lot of ads that are related to how we're helping in, you know,
Yes.
in this crisis. Like I saw one, I can't remember what company it was for, but it was the going with the Chuck Berry song "Up in the Morning and Off to School," and they had like the names of schools superimposed over people's houses, and they were showing, you know, kids on video conference and talking about that. And, you know, how they were, it was AT&T talking about how they were helping to support that.
Yeah. You know, so I think on some level, small businesses can be a little more agile and pivot and be congruent and in alignment with what their messaging should be, both internally and externally, than these much larger organizations that you've got one department in charge of hiring the advertising agency who shot the commercial, who bought the buying time, and now it's just on television.
Yeah, now it's just going to run no matter what. Yeah,
right.
we paid for it. Yeah.
And they're not having cross conversations with the user experience people and the marketing people and the leadership people. And, you know, these larger companies on some level have a harder time, I think, communicating and stop turning off the faucet to stop things.
Yeah, it takes longer to turn the boat around.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. Small businesses can respond a little bit more quickly.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
And especially with the help of somebody like you, they really can respond.
Well, I blush, but why not?
Yeah, really true.
Well, you know, certainly there's never a bad time to actually know and be able to say briefly who you are and why what you do is valuable.
Yeah.
And probably right now, even more important. You know, people have more time to assimilate things now. So in some ways, it's a great time to reach them. At the same time, there's just like an astonishing amount of noise. And, you know, the solution isn't, you know, to blanket the airwaves or to blanket social media. It's to have something that is simple and clear enough that people only have to hear it a few times to take it in, or at least to want to know more.
So what you just said there, I think, is really important. I've been thinking a lot about this lately because my background is as an actor and my husband's a writer and I'm a writer. And so everybody has glommed on to this word content. We have to create content. But if all you're thinking about is creating big C content, then you lose track of the fact that what you really want to be offering is something of interest and of value to the person that might be listening to the podcast or watching a conversation like this or whatever YouTube video that you might want to be putting up. And I think going back to thinking about, I'm going to offer a piece of writing, I'm going to create a little bit of music, I'm going to share some entertainment rather than large C content.
Which is just like an empty bucket. Oddly enough, when you just say content, you're talking about something that itself has no content. You're just talking about a hole to fill, you know, that you're just going to pour stuff into, and that's going to be your content.
Yeah. And what I love about your work is that once people get clear on what the messaging is, which is basically another way of saying, why do we exist and who are we helping?
Yeah.
Then you can make really informed decisions about how you can be most helpful to your current customers and your potential customers, to your current team, to your current boss, you know, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, absolutely. You wouldn't necessarily think it, but companies I've worked with have told me that getting clear on the message, and it's not like they had no idea who they were before I showed up, they knew, but getting clear and getting that really boiled down clear expression of it that everybody agrees to actually guided other decisions for them. It not only kind of pulled the team together because they're like, oh yeah, that's what we do. That's why it's valuable. That's why we have a right to exist and people should care about us. But also it guided things like acquisition decisions, or do we make this product or kill this product? Because they have that kind of melody, that kind of resonance they can check in with and say, okay, does this chord go with our song or does it not?
Oh, I love that metaphor. That's beautiful.
Yeah, so
You know,
that
it's,
helps.
as we're thinking about this and talking about this, uh, so what I help people do is increase their executive presence by using the skills that actors use to have great stage presence. And so I am really informed. Everything that I think about, even when I'm working with people in terms of personal branding, is informed through my acting and theater career.
Yeah,
So
that's what
as
I
an
love about you.
actress, yeah, oh, thank you. So as an actress, one of the earliest lessons that I needed to learn just for myself to get ready to go to auditions is what's my type. As
Mm-hmm.
a young actress, when I was 18, I really envisioned that I was going to be the leading lady.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would submit myself for all of these leading lady parts, and I either A, wouldn't get auditions at all, or I'd get the auditions and I'd never get the part.
Mm-hmm.
When I started to understand that, oh, I'm the nerdy best friend. Oh, I'm the nosy next door neighbor. Then I discovered, because I've been cast over 22 times in my career as a Holocaust survivor, that something about me screamed suffering but resilient.
Oh dear.
Right? But that's my brand. And that
Mm-hmm.
once you understand, in my business, we say what our type is, kind of what's the initial hit when you
Yeah.
walk into the room. That's a
Yeah.
little bit about what personal branding is about. But once you understand what that is, then you can make choices about how you could lean into that to
Mm-hmm.
create what your product and service, et cetera, is going to be. Or if it's not resonating at all with what you want to be doing, what are the changes that you need to make so that you're showing up in a way that does lean into the thing that you want to be showing up as. And so, there's a big crossover, I think, between my background as an actress, the work that I'm currently doing, and the work that you do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I talk about in deciding what your message, what your brand is going to be, is what do people already know about you, or what do they already get from you? So there are certain things that are dissonant, like cheap Mercedes or nice, cuddly Oracle Corporation. We were considered very smart when I worked there, but we weren't necessarily considered cuddly. So
Yeah.
um, what you said is really important about what changes you might want to make. If you don't want to, if you're not getting the market you want for what people already assume you to be, it is possible to modify how you come across. But in order to do that first, you need to know how you, or in my case, how your company does come across.
Yeah.
So if you didn't want to be the kooky best friend, you could have gone against that. You could have found changes. I mean, it doesn't always work out. Jennifer Grey's nose job was not her best career move, as we know. But if you're going to make changes in your brand, it starts out in a consciousness of what it is. And I know that's true for you when you work with people as personal leaders. You help them figure out what their brand is. And then from there, if they want to change it, they can.
Yeah.
But likewise with companies, if you're oblivious to how people see you, then you're not going to be in a position to make those modifications.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
if you're oblivious to how people see you, then you may also be missing out on their being the market for what you already are.
Yeah.
There
So it's
may,
interesting that I'm sorry, finish your thought.
no, that was it.
So because you said Oracle, I mean, the name in and of itself already starts to anchor you in some kind of brand. We're going to look into the Oracle to predict the future.
Mm-hmm.
And so that the name already tells me something about what the brand of that company is going to be. And cuddly wouldn't be part of what that whole myth,
No,
creates.
it's not called empathizer.
Right, right. And then there are companies then that must have done that deep dive for themselves. So Business Depot took a long, long trajectory to reinvent themselves to be Staples. And they must have gone through a very deep dive around what they wanted that brand to be and who they wanted to reach as a customer, and why changing the name of the whole company, I think it took them maybe 10 years. I remember years it would say Business Depot Staples, and then it said Staples Business Depot, and then now it just says Staples, in order to achieve that exact thing that you're talking about.
Yeah, and then there are ones that haven't made that transition particularly successfully. I think that, for example, Dress Barn, which is not a name that conjures high fashion, they had the consciousness to recognize how they were seen. I think it might have been a mistake to try to change it, but when they did try to change it, they at least took a good shot at it. They had these models leading farmyard animals on leashes in very sort of haute couture. and ads that said things like, more than our name suggests.
Yes.
But I felt like in the end it was kind of too little against a huge tide of reputation that really
Yeah.
wasn't going to change. Then there are other companies that have changed their names to change their focus, and again, kind of fallen short, not done it in as clear and orderly a process, and not done it with as much awareness. I'm interested in one company that actually made a completely different choice, which was MailChimp. So MailChimp started out basically just doing these, bulk email mailing list things. You use them, I use them for our little newsletters. Well, clearly at some point, as they built out more of a full marketing and CRM and web and all this stuff that they did, they were thinking to themselves, we are not just MailChimp now, we are more than just emails. And I'm sure that there were people in that company that wanted to change the name. What they did instead, I think, was clever and fascinating. I've seen billboards up a couple months ago when we were still out walking around, that is.
Yeah.
And they said, we've outgrown our name. Let us help your business do that too. So they didn't change the name, but they played on the fact that they're now so much more without losing all of the name recognition that they already had.
Yeah.
Now, I've seen other businesses do name changes and rebrands in a less thoughtful way and actually go out of business because of it.
Well, so even going back to Dress Barn as your example, I used to always buy my winter coats at a place called Burlington Coat Factory, and that was what the name was.
Yes.
And then I went 2 years ago, I guess, I went to go buy a winter coat to Burlington Coat Factory, and it no longer said Coat Factory on it. Now it's just Burlington. And when you walk in, there's shoes and there's pantyhose, and there was like 4 coats in the whole place.
Yeah, it's hard to find a coat there anymore.
Right, you can't even buy a coat there anymore. So I at the time they were still in business, but that was a very interesting strategic decision that they made, right?
Yeah. Not sure how that one came out.